Yes, well, I mean, people around the world often laugh at Australia and our democracy sausages and the people lining up to vote and budgie smugglers. We are one of the dwindling numbers of countries where voting is compulsory and Australians go to the polls more frequently than most people. But Piers, have we lost some of the charm since we started dabbling in things like apocalypse politics and Marxist-style racism? Because it feels like this isn't just a particular political discussion that has brought out the nastiness. It's more of a cultural change where people view politics and view democracy in a completely different way, and it's leading us to look more like left-wing regimes in countries that don't really value democracy and freedom of speech as we used to.
Alexandra, I really think that identity politics holds the key to the hatred that we saw displayed. I think that the Marxists have been very, very clever, not just in Australia, because identity politics is taught in universities through this deconstruction program that's taken place where you're not just an Australian anymore, you are an Australian by gender, by heritage, racial origin. And so we have today people on an Aboriginal affairs program run by the ABC, paid for by our tax dollars, for example, who are perhaps 164th, 128th have Aboriginal heritage, and yet they say that they are a proud this Indigenous person or a proud that Indigenous person, when by and large, their genetic makeup would show that they are as European as you or I, or Asian, or whatever. And I think we have to get rid of this again. During the two world wars we fought, we didn't talk about Australians as Greek Australians or French Australians or Indigenous Australians. The people who fought under one Australian flag were all Australians, and they were buried all in the same cemetery. And now we have a push for people to be to be disinterred and for their bodies to be put into an Indigenous cemetery here or marked at the War Memorial in Canberra.
This is so close to when you go to old cemeteries out in outback Australia and you find the Catholic cemetery and you find the Christian cemetery, and then you have couples who are buried half on each because they weren't allowed to be buried in each other's cemeteries. I mean, this is not a sort of idea that we really want to go back to. Now, just one final question here before we have to go. You wrote the cover piece for The Spectator back in June, warning that this whole political vanity project by the Prime Minister would divide the nation. But in retrospect, has it divided the nation, Piers, or did the voice to Parliament actually unite the majority against race-based politics and expose what is undeniably a Canberra voice, an inner-city voice, a Marxist voice? Has it woken Australia up to what's going on inside its politics?
Well, I think you're right. And when I was asked beforehand whether this would divide Australians, I thought long and hard. And my view hasn't changed. And that is that the no vote was so overwhelming. And people are so relieved that the whole process is over. They don't want to go back into this identity politics. They want to put this wasted time behind them. It's cost us very close to $1 billion as in taxpayers' money, let alone all of this money that corporations have invested, wasted on the yes campaign. I think that it has, and you've alluded to this, it's marginalised the Canberra voices and those Aboriginal activists. And they said before this referendum that if it failed, we wouldn't hear from them again. I only hope they keep to that promise, because they've broken every other one.